For my project about mass media, I decided to interview my grandmother because she grew up in the 1930s, and so I knew she would have a much different view on how media was and just how it operated at the time. And it's changed a lot since then, so I knew she'd be a really interesting person to talk to. So my grandmother's personal experiences with mass media, I spoke with her. She's almost 80, so we talked about what it was like when she was growing up, and then how the media really has evolved in terms of just how music is, how we listen or watch news, the movies that we watch, and, the difference in what kind of movies are made, them being in color now, there's really just a lot that's changed with it. The most common medium in the 20th century when my grandma grew up was radio, and she said how with no television yet at home, that everyone would sit around, after dinner and listen to the radio to listen to the news most often. But then there would also be like certain shows that would be on, and it was always a Western show, she said, because her dad only liked her dad's favorite genre is Westerns, and so they always listened to Westerns. And she grew up on a farm, so I mean, it was pretty fitting to enjoy that stuff. For television and movies, I said the new era because she grew up in a time when like movies were starting to become more, we had The Wizard of Oz in 1936, and so it's coming into color, and she's saying, how amazing that was to be able to see a movie in color for the first time, and that growing up, that whenever she go to the movies, she was living on a farm, and so it was really limited, and so that they would watch, whenever they went to the movies, it'd also be a Western film, but she never went out with friends or anything to go to the movies because she was always so far from home. So I mean, when she would watch TV, it was always with her family at home. It was never anywhere else, because there was really no access, and they would watch either a Western show or the news after dinner, and but then the news it would all go off at midnight on TV. There would be no other shows. This one was the most interesting to me. Is the way we think about it now is music's at our fingertips, where you can find it on YouTube or on Spotify, Apple Music. I mean, we have so many different options now for how we listen to music. And I mean, and records have become a nostalgia thing to where we buy them, either to have as a collection or just, for fun now, because it's not something that's really needed anymore. But it's interesting because, I mean, that was all that she had at the time. And I asked her how much they cost, and she really couldn't tell me because they didn't really buy much because they didn't really have enough money to afford any, They would get them from friends, she said, sometimes, or whatever ones that her family that she said happened to have, or whatever her dad would bring home. And that they were almost always Western or country music, and that, I mean, she really didn't have anything that she couldn't listen to because there was no other options for her of what to listen to, and so they kind of her parents really controlled what she did listen to at the time. And so much different than today, to where we really have options at our fingertips, to where we can really choose whatever we want to listen to, whether it be explicit, not explicit, any genre you can think of. Being able to hear my grandma's perspective of when she was a kid, it was really interesting for me to see how much media has changed, over the last 80 years, and that mass media, that term in general, has such a different connotation now compared to back in the early 30s when she was growing up. It was something that, revolved around radio, and the new era, and the new biggest thing that they thought was going to be forever was television, and that color television, what could be better than that? Or like, wow, we have more options for channels. There's more than 3 channels and all those things. And now we have streaming services and streaming music. We have everything at our fingertips. And that's something that she could never imagine as a kid.